This week on The Startup Life.
There's certain things that has to happen. And that's kind of that's exactly what we do. We give business owners a plan. Every single month we monitor and analyze the business's performance, and we'll analyze the financials because we're the financial people in this scenario. And we'll come to you and say, Mr. Business Owner or Mrs. Business Owner, we think that you need to work on these 4 things this month to have a growing and more profitable business.
All right, StartupNation, so let's take flight with Adam Lean, founder of the CFO Project. The Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey Startup Nation, do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own look, and making money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase. All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to see some value today. We got a big time guest in the building today. We got Adam Lean of the CFO Project. What's going on, Big A?
Not a whole lot. How are you doing?
I cannot complain, man. Are you ready to pour some knowledge in the startup life today?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All righty. As always, this is your host, Dominic Lawson. This is the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. So first things first, my friend, tell us about your path to entrepreneurship.
Oh, man. Well, in college, I was an accounting major. And so I thought, well, I'll become an accountant. So after college, became an accountant and hated it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I enjoyed where I worked. I just didn't enjoy the actual job of being an accountant, because an accountant's job is to record what happened in the past. And I just wanted to get in the business and get my hands dirty and work in operations. And, in accounting, they expect you to sit behind a desk all day. So at night and on the weekends, I started my own business. And this was back in 2006. I started an eCommerce store.
Okay.
And that was when it was really easy to start an e-commerce store. That grew. Within a couple of years, I was doing $500,000 in sales. And so I was able to leave my accounting job and focus on this. And, sales were growing fast. But every single year, the profit margin was getting smaller and smaller. It's for various reasons, but it just is what it is. And so I was able to navigate that fairly okay because I had an accounting background. Well, I started working with other small businesses that owned other internet, e-commerce stores, and realized that they were struggling just like I was, but they didn't have the benefit of having an accounting degree and being an accountant. They were not able to navigate it. And they just thought, hey, I just need to work harder and longer and put in more hours and just grow sales to fix my business. And that just wasn't the case. And so I was able to help them figure out sort of a strategy, a plan to navigate, to do what a business is supposed to do, which is to make more profit.
Right.
What a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs out there don't really understand at first. They just think that sales is what matters. It's not. It's what you get to put in your bank and keep that matters. No, to get there, you got to make a profit, and there's just certain things that you have to do. So anyways, when I sold my e-commerce store 5 years ago, and I started consulting full-time with those businesses, and that morphed into what I'm doing now with the CFO Project. So, we help business owners, small business owners specifically, figure out a way to make a profit.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you brought up that distinction between revenue, sales, and profit, because I think that's where a lot of people maybe kind of get confused, especially those new startup founders, right? And so explain a little bit about how easy those profit margins can get eaten up over time. Because like you can have $500,000 in sales, but you're not necessarily having a decent profit margin. So I kind of explain how those profit margins can get eaten up as a startup founder.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, business owners and entrepreneurs like to talk about how much they're doing in revenue. I'm a $1 million business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're $1 million business, but you're paying out $999,000 to other people, then no, you're not a $1 million business. You're, $1,000 business.
Right.
And it's not worth it. So a lot of business owners, glorify sales, and sales is obviously important, but it's not the most important thing. I'd rather have $1 million deposited in my bank account as in terms of profit that I get to keep. I'd rather focus on that. And so to answer your question, a lot of business owners, they are hyper focused on sales, which you should be.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but you've also got to be hyper focused on what you spend your money on. So when you get a $100 sale in the door, you want to keep as much of that $100 as possible. And that's called your profit margin. So if you got $100 in sales and you kept $100, then you would have a 100% profit margin. That's the goal. Well, of course, that's not possible in most businesses.
Right.
You've got to pay out something to keep your business alive. And so you want to get as close to that 100% as possible. I mean, nothing's worse than seeing a company, and I see them all the time. It's, a small business that's making that $100 sale, but they're only keeping 2% of it. It's not good. You're spending all this time and effort and energy to trade dollars for dollars.
And it's definitely not sustainable, right?
No, absolutely not. Because you want to keep, the whole point of business is to create, sort of manufacture cash. I mean, that's really what a business is. If you think of a business as a small business as like a machine sitting in your garage, where that machine's only function is to produce cash, you want to keep your machine as finely tuned as possible. And so that's really the job of your business. You want to keep your job as your business as finely tuned as possible so that it keeps producing more and more cash.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And StartupNation, I hope you caught that, definitely knowing those distinctions, but definitely trying to make sure you have that sustainable profit margin to keep the doors open. So I appreciate that. And that actually kind of leads into my next question, Adam. So I appreciate you kind of segueing to that. So, I'm really glad you're on the Startup Life Powered by the Bench podcast network, because we have so many people that have great ideas, but they forget about three things that I think that are very important, for starting a company, this, that, and the other. And that's financials, marketing, and the selling that they must do, right? And you often say that most businesses don't make it past their 5th birthday because of those things. So Adam, help me out, because I say this to StartupNation all the time, but you know how it is. If I say it all the time, like, yeah, Dominic, whatever. So Adam, back me up here. That you just can't focus on the craft of the business, but you got to take a comprehensive view in order to be successful. Back me up here a little bit, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most businesses that start in the country are service-based businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because a person is an expert at a certain craft, like you said. So for example, somebody that knows marketing starts a marketing agency. A dentist was trained in dentistry, so they buy a dental practice.
Right.
So most businesses that start are service-based businesses because these business owners are experts in a certain area. But the problem is, and you mentioned this earlier, half of all small businesses fail within the first 5 years. Mm-hmm. And that's according to the Small Business Administration. They track these things. So 50% of all small businesses fail. And I believe that they fail because they're not focused on the most important things. And you sort of hit the nail on the head with those three things you mentioned: financials, marketing, and selling. Mm-hmm. Those are definitely important. But business owners, they tend to spend most of their time working in their business. So for example, that dentist will spend majority of their day being a dentist.
Right.
The problem is that the whole point of his business or her business is to make a profit. And so there's other things that person has to be focused on throughout the month. in order to stay in business, in order to not be one of those 50% of businesses that fail. You've got to focus on the most important things. You mentioned financials, marketing, and selling. I mean, obviously you've got to market to get the sales.
Right.
But then once you get that, you've got to keep the sales. You got to keep that 100% as much as possible profit. And there's certain things that has to happen. And that's kind of that's exactly what we do. We give business owners a plan. Every single month we monitor and analyze the business's performance, and we'll analyze the financials, because we're the financial people in this scenario. And we'll come to you and say, Mr. Business Owner, or Mrs. Business Owner, we think that you need to work on these 4 things this month to have a growing and more profitable business. Gotcha. And then we help you strategize and figure that out. That way you could be great at a dentist. You could focus all your energy on being a dentist, or being that marketing expert, or the cook who starts a restaurant. You can spend most of your time doing what you do best, knowing that you have and this is why we call it the CFO Project. You have a chief financial officer, if you will, monitoring your business to make sure that you're going to have a growing and more profitable business.
Hey, Startup Nation, I really want to chime in here with a reflection point, because Adam brings up a very important thing. Look, Startup Nation, on your path to entrepreneurship, we definitely have to find that balance between working on the business versus working in the business. I don't have to explain what that is, because I think Adam did a very good job of explaining what that looks like and what that is. But Startup Nation, that's the difference between scaling and growing. Look, in the beginning, you're going to have to do a lot of working in the business for the sustainability. You got to keep the doors open. You got to keep the business afloat. But over time, you want to start thinking about growing and scaling the business. That's where it comes to working on the business, right? And so how do we achieve that? We do this by delegating to the team members that we hire. We also make sure those team members are the right fit for our culture, for our brand, and for our business, Startup Nation. And also, when we do hire the right people, we have to give them the constant professional development that they need, and that honestly, some of them really want to be better in the business, to be better in their role, which ultimately benefits you and the company, Startup Nation. And so in the show notes, we've actually inserted a link to a New York Times piece that really talks about steps to working on the business versus working in the business. And the thing is, Startup Nation, this is really important, because whether you call yourself the CEO, the executive director, or whatever the case may be, that's a business working at its optimum level. As the executive director or the CEO, you are the one who's really out there just guiding the ship and selling the business, letting the marketplace know we're here to serve you, we have the product you need, we have the service you need, while the people that you hire, your team members, if you will, are doing the nuts and bolts, the day-to-day jobs of keeping the doors open. So on your path to entrepreneurship, really think about, obviously in the beginnings, the sustainability and keeping the doors open, but over time, think about how to make the decision to transition into growing or working on the business and growing the business. Let's get back to Adam. Gotcha. And Startup Nation, if you feel like Adam is a person that can help you in your business, especially on that financial piece, definitely go to the CFOproject.com. We have a link in the show notes for easy access for you to access, Adam's services and what have you. So I appreciate you sharing all of that, Adam, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
No worries. So let's go back just a little bit, if you would. Let's go back to your days at Auburn. I feel obligated to go War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Sure. But let's go back to Auburn a little bit. So I want you to think about, a professor, the worst professor, teacher, boss, mentor you ever had. And what did you learn from them?
The worst one?
The worst.
Oh, man. So I remember this one accounting professor who was I'm assuming he was a great accountant, because he was used to be the CFO of a major company. I'm not going to name names, but he used to be a major, CFO of a major company, but oh my goodness, he couldn't teach accounting. And here's the thing though, accounting is not complicated. And small business owners, they want to complicate their financial statements and their money and financial and information in general, but it's not that complicated. And this guy it's interesting you asked this question, because this guy confused things so much that almost nobody in the class could really understand, much less future business owners who didn't want to be an accountant. And I didn't really want to be an accountant. I was more interested in business. It wasn't until I actually became an accountant and then started applying it to my business and to other businesses that it really made sense. And that's actually, one of the things that I pride myself on is that myself and all the other CFOs we have here, we translate financials and accounting into language that makes sense.
I hear that.
Yeah, because it shouldn't be complicated. At the end of the day, your goal is to make a profit. That's, if you will, that's your score. I mean, you can't be a basketball player or a baseball player playing in the game without knowing the score. I mean, it's hard. Well, you can't be a business owner without knowing the score. And so we try to make things super, super clear.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that for sure. So Adam, a while back, you wrote a piece called 5 Ways Small Businesses Can Compete with Big Online Businesses. Mm-hmm. And, you had many great points in that piece, and it was a very good piece, by the way. But I actually want to ask you about number 2, because I thought that was fascinating. And number 2 stated that, big businesses can't provide value other than on price. I love this, because I think many people only think that the only value you can provide your client base is on the price. So if you would explain to Startup Nation, what was your thinking behind that point?
Yeah, so and that article is actually geared towards e-commerce business owners, but this really could apply to anybody.
For sure.
If your main selling point, if you're competing on price, you're probably going to lose. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you own a heating and air company,
right,
you're competing with other heating and air companies in your town, and the only thing you're competing on is price, you're probably going to lose. Even if you make the sale, you're probably not going to have that much profit margin left to really have a growing and sustainable business. Right. So you've got to focus on competing on something other than price. In that article, I was writing it toward for other e-commerce business owners. Mm-hmm. If you sell bicycles and you're competing on price, you're going to lose to Walmart. You're going to lose to Amazon.com. You're going to lose to Dick's Sporting Goods. So you've got to compete on something other than price. So if you're the retailer of bicycles online, mm-hmm. one thing you can compete on is being the most knowledgeable about bicycles. Right. That's something that Amazon can't do. That's something that Walmart can't do. A customer going to Amazon can't pick up the phone and talk to somebody who's knowledgeable about bicycles. But if you own that bike store, you can have quality salespeople that's trained on bicycles. And that way your customers will get to know and like and trust you and buy from you.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. And we have many in Startup Nation who are still kind of working the 9-to-5, but they're definitely dipping their toe in the entrepreneurship through the e-commerce space. And I love that you pointed that out, because like you said, if you try to compete on price, they're going to beat you on price every single time. So try to figure out if you can be more knowledgeable, have a better quality product, or whatever the case may be. So I appreciate you sharing all that for sure, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. And I usually tell people, don't be like a gas station. If you're traveling down the road and you see 2 gas stations, one at, say $2.50 a gallon and one at $2.40 a gallon, most people are going to go to the one that's $2.40 a gallon because they're competing on price. Well, those 2 gas stations are they're selling a commodity. They're selling something that you can get anywhere. Most people don't know the difference between brand A of gas and brand B of gas. They just want what's cheapest.
Right.
So if you're the $2.50, the more expensive gas station, you're going to lose. So you've got to compete on something other. So don't be a gas station. Don't have a commodity product or service.
Gotcha. And I think that's very important, that commodity or that thing you got to have anyway to kind of function or something like that. So I appreciate you sharing that distinction.
Yeah.
As well, for sure. So I want to ask you about one more piece that you wrote as well, is how to generate cash for your business. So you bring up 3 interesting points that like how to generate cash for your business, right? You can borrow it, you can sell a piece of your business in exchange for cash, or you can make a profit from your business. And once again, this is excellent content, and this is on Adam's LinkedIn page if you want to read more of his content as well. So I guess I'm curious because I'm always fascinated by content creators and what they write or what they do with podcasts, stuff like that. So what particularly inspired this piece for you to write, Adam?
Well, so, cash flow, the amount of money you get to keep in your business is the most important thing, and I preach that to every, business owner that I work with. And so making a profit is the best way to generate cash for your business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to make a profit, there's really two other ways you can generate cash, because you got to have cash. I mean, if you're to keep the lights on, to pay your employees, so you've got to have cash. So there's three ways to generate cash for your business. Of course, my favorite is to make a profit. We've talked about that.
Right.
And that's what we help our clients do. And the other way, like you mentioned, is to, the first way is to borrow it. Well, you could borrow money from, say, a lender, a bank, a venture capitalist. I mean, there's a ton of places to borrow money. Here's the problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's really difficult to get people to lend you money, especially if you're a startup business. And two, most of them, or actually all of them, want that money back. So it's not real cash,
right,
that you get to keep. You have to pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
The first way is to borrow the money. The second way is to get investors. Well,
right.
When you go out and get an investor and they give you cash, they're going to want something for that. And what they want is a piece of your business. They want ownership. So you don't own 100% of your business anymore. You have to give a piece of that away. And that's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Shark Tank has popularized this, and it works for some businesses. But the problem is, if you notice, most businesses on Shark Tank are product-based businesses.
That's true.
But the problem is, most businesses that start in this country are service-based businesses.
That's very true.
Yeah. So it's not wise to give away a piece of your business when you are the product. So the best way and the cheapest way, is to generate cash for a business is to make a profit.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. You're absolutely right about that service versus product-based businesses. Most of them are service-based businesses, and many of the people who listen to the Startup Life are service-based businesses as well. So I appreciate you making that distinction also as well. Adam, let me ask you this, man. What did you learn from your biggest failure?
My biggest failure, I've learned, you're going to think I'm making this up because we just talked about it, but I learned from my biggest failure to protect cash.
I hear that. Okay.
The website, actually, the e-commerce store that I started,
right,
was actually, by the time I got it off the ground, it was my fourth attempt. I started a couple times in college, and then by the time I became an accountant, I just learned, I had a lot more knowledge and had experience because I failed the other times. I just simply did not protect my cash, and I gave it away on very stupid things. I spent money on things that were sort of vanity things that really didn't matter.
We've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Or things that don't produce a positive return on investment. And that's why I tell clients, if you're going to spend money, whether it's on paying an employee, buying marketing ads, paying insurance, rent, whatever you spend money on, you've got to ask yourself, am I going to get this money back in the terms in the form of more profit? And if the answer is no, then you don't need to spend the money. You might as well keep the money in your bank account.
Absolutely.
And I know this is sort of a weird question to ask because there's really not an easy yes. If I hire this employee, am I going to get my return on this employee salary? Well, I don't know, but that's why you've got to think through things. And that's why having somebody like us, a CFO on your team, will help, because we help you figure that out. But there's no point in spending money on something where you're not going to get a positive return of investment. Otherwise, you might as well keep that money in your bank account.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. So, Adam, let's switch gears here, because I actually want to talk to you about something that's actually kind of fascinating to me, and it's kind of in your space as well. So we've all heard of this phrase called fintech, or financial technology, and it seems to be the future as it relates to small business owner use and stuff like that. And Startup Nation, if you're not familiar with fintech, it's like apps, websites, and more that provide some type of financial service, to whether it be crowdfunding, banking, stock trading, or even accounting. So, Adam, I guess I just kind of want to get your take on fintech. Is it the wave of the future, or is it just a fad?
I don't know.
Gotcha.
I mean, I think that a lot of these services make sense. So, for example, and I'm not familiar with the investing side of things.
Gotcha.
World. But there's accounting and bookkeeping type businesses that are popping up online, and I mean, I think it makes sense. If you have a small business and you could go online and get, let's say a bookkeeper, for example. We don't do bookkeeping, but that's just an example. There's a lot of popular services that are popping up. If you could get a bookkeeper at a very reasonable price, then I mean it completely makes sense. I mean, these businesses would not exist if there wasn't a need.
Right.
So I mean it makes sense. My only concern, and what I would tell small business owners, is to just vet them. You've got to, if you can get somebody on the phone or do like a video chat to meet them and make sure they understand you and understand your business and your goals, that was my only hesitation.
Gotcha. Oh, I have to agree with you there. I think that's my concern too, because I mean, true enough, fintech is great, but only to a certain extent, because it takes out the human element. Like, yes, there's the numbers, and then, people say numbers don't lie, and maybe AI can kind of see what the numbers say and this, that, and the other. But I feel like the numbers only tell a big part of the story on what you're trying to do in your company, but it doesn't tell the entire story. And so I think there still needs to be a human element, Startup Nation, to making certain financial decisions and not just depending on what just the numbers say. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and that's actually why I created the business model that I did.
For sure.
Because there has to be a human element to it. For example, if you have QuickBooks, most business owners and entrepreneurs have QuickBooks or something very similar to it. It'll give you reports. There's hundreds of reports that it will give you. The problem is you have to know what to do with those reports. And most people are not focused or not trained or skilled enough to know what to do with those reports to impact their business in a positive way.
Right.
And that's because they're focused on the like we talked about earlier, on the craft of their business. A dentist is going to stay focused and honing their craft at dentistry. A marketing person is going to hone their craft at marketing because that's what they do best. And their accountant or they could pull up, a balance sheet on QuickBooks or whatnot, or their accountant can give them a balance sheet, and they'll just look at it and probably put it on the side of their desk to never be seen again. You've got to have somebody that is focused and understands small business financials and helps interpret things in a way that allows you to grow your business.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask you this really quickly, right before we go to break. So entrepreneurs consider themselves lifelong learners, always engaged in constant professional development, whether it be reading books, listening to podcasts, and everything in between. So when you hear professional development, what does that mean to you, and what are you learning now?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on two things. I'm a reader. I read. Okay. I try to read 2 business books a month.
Okay.
And there's so many good ones out there. There's, this is what I love about reading, is that for $12, you can get insight into an expert's mind.
For sure.
I just finished a book by a CEO of a major business, and it's like that person would never sit down with me and share with me all that stuff, but I was able to get their knowledge and read it for $12. So reading is definitely good. I also listen to podcasts. I think, very similar to reading, podcasts can give you very digestible help in an easy to understand, easy to digest manner while you're on the go. I mean, I walk my dog several times a day. That's what I do. I listen to podcasts.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you like being on the Startup Life so far, Adam?
I love it. Yeah, this is great.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're getting great value from Adam's content, but we got to pay a few bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson. This is the Startup Life Podcast, and it is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Hey business owner, the Startup Life reach is growing. Wouldn't you like your business to grow with it? Reach out to us to advertise on the Startup Life. You can reach us at 901-857-4818, or you can email me at dominic@askalsolutions.com. I mean, don't get me wrong, like this is a great music to have a break on, but wouldn't this break sound a lot better with the same music but your business being advertised on it? Need more content from the Startup Life, you say? You can now sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. There is exclusive content written by yours truly, video content where I share even more of my business philosophies, and whatever crazy content I can think of out of that crazy head of mine. And at only $5 a month, yeah, $5 a month, this is more content for you, Startup Nation, to really get ahead of your competition. So instead of upsizing that meal at your favorite fast food joint, you can now invest in yourself on your path to entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. All right, Startup Nation, so let's continue. So Adam, sir, tell us all about the CFO Project and tell us exactly how it works. So we contact you and then what happens?
All right. So the entire point, the entire goal of working with us is for us to give you a plan to have a growing and more profitable business.
Okay.
So the first thing that we'll do is we'll assess your small business. We'll understand what's going right, what's going wrong. We'll spot red flags and we'll spot opportunities for growth. But we just need to digest and look at things through a financial lens. And we'll come to you and say, here, we'll meet for about an hour and we'll say, here is the assessment on your business. Here's what we think is going right, what things need to be improved upon. And then we'll craft a plan, a strategy for going forward. And then what that involves is every month we'll meet for about 30 to 45 minutes every single month. And behind the scenes before our meeting, we'll understand we'll analyze your business and understand how your business is doing and how it's tracking towards our plan that we created. And then we'll get on that phone call for 45 minutes and we'll say, here's the 3 to 5 things that we think you and your team needs to focus on this month. And we'll make it very clear. And if you focus on those 3 to 5 things, those will be the most important things for your business to stay on the right track to have a profitable business. So, we'll make it very clear, say, here's the 3 to 5 things, and we'll strategize on that phone call how to actually get it done. And we'll make sure you're very clear on what you need to do to make sure it happens. And then the next month, we'll do it all over again. And then, the goal is that your business will become a more profitable and growing, and will hit the goals that we set. We're kind of like every big business has a CFO, a chief financial officer.
Right.
That person's job is to make sure the business stays in business and thrives. That's it.
Gotcha.
Well, every business needs something like that, but small businesses just don't. So that's where we come in. We meet with you. We give you, like your own CFO, and we behind the scenes we'll analyze your financials. We'll handle understand the performance of your business, and we'll come to you and say, all right, based on the current performance of your business and based on our goals for your business, the goals that the business owner and we set together, here's the 3 to 5 things that we think are the most important for your team to work on this month. And then we discuss how to make it happen. That way the business owner is focused on the most important things that need to happen to stay in business, so that they, that not only they don't fail, because, of course, 50% of those businesses we talked about earlier fail, but so that they will grow and have a more profitable business, which is what matters. Profit gives you cash that you get to keep. What you do with that cash, totally up to you. You can spend it, you can give it all away, you can save it for retirement. It doesn't matter. But the point is, your business is supposed to give you cash that comes in the form of more profit, and that's what we help you do.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you this, man. So let's say you have a client and you started working with them, but you start to see there's some red flags or maybe you guys aren't a good fit. What do you do in a scenario like that? How do you have those tough conversations with a client to where you found out like maybe they're not a good fit? Like you give them you give them the directive for the month, and then maybe the next month they didn't really follow through on everything, and then the following month they follow through on even less things they did the previous month, right? So how do you have those tough conversations with clients?
Well, that's a great question. In all the years I've done this, I've only had to fire 2 clients.
Okay.
Because of that.
Okay.
The first client, they just simply didn't do what we were discussed. And they're out of business today, coincidentally enough. This was 2 years ago. But I told that person, I said, I can keep taking your money every month. Right. And then the second client, just very similar situation. But that's just 2. There's a lot of other clients that, all the other clients that we've worked with, we really don't have that problem, because what we tell them is the most important things to focus on. We make it very clear so that it's just a very small step to take for the business owner. We're not asking them to climb the mountain in 1 month. We're saying, here's the first 3 steps to climb the mountain, and we'll point them in the right direction. So we're taking this 1 step at a time, because we're all about change. We're all about improving your business, and we're about results. And results to us is, did your business, after a year of working with us or 6 months of working with us, make more profit than last year? That's what we pride ourselves on. So, other service providers like your bookkeeper, we talked about bookkeepers earlier, their job really is just to record what happened, regardless if you make a profit or not. Mm-hmm. We're different. We're there to make sure that you make a profit. And so when we meet with our business owners, clients every single month, they're very receptive, and they want to make sure, because they care about their business. They want to make sure that they are going to do the things that matter. And the businesses that are not going to listen are probably not going to become a client in the first place, because I found that those business owners typically have a larger ego than they should.
Right.
And I found that this is going to sound bad, but larger egos are usually with people who want to start a business or are within the first several months of starting a business. People who have a business more than a year typically have been humbled enough to know that they can't be an expert at everything.
Right.
If you're the dentist, like I have a doctor client now, pretty large. He owns a pretty large practice. There's about 16 other doctors that work for him. He flat out told me, he said, I've been doing this for a while. I've realized a long time ago, I'm a horrible business owner, but I'm a great doctor.
Right.
He's not trying to be an expert at everything. So it's a perfect fit. We come to him and say, hey, here are the 4 things that we spotted that we think you should work on, these 4 small steps. And then we say, all right, we on the call, we'll ask the doctor to assign those 4 things to certain people on his team, and he'll do it. And we have a system, we have a way to track to make sure all this is happening. The next month they'll get done because he cares about his business. He wants to have a growing and more profitable business.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And so I want to ask you this, because we have many people in Startup Nation who are in the food truck business. And I see that you've actually helped a food truck business before when I was looking at your client list there. Yep. So, I was curious about what are some of those key things in that industry that, people who are starting a food truck should be aware of from a financial standpoint? What are some of those starting key points they should be aware of?
So that's a good question. And this answer sort of applies to any business.
Okay.
But before you even start, the best thing to do, and everybody talks about a business plan, and I think business plans are completely overrated.
Okay.
What you really need is to just get out a sheet of paper or open up a Microsoft Excel and just map out the flow, the sales flow for one client or one customer. So in the food truck business, map out exactly what you're going to sell and pick a popular product, or what you think is going to be a popular product, and assign a dollar amount to it. Let's say that, the food truck that I helped was an ice cream company. It has several ice cream trucks. So their most popular product, we assigned a dollar amount to it. And then we figured out the cost. How much does it cost to, the actual cost of the ice cream? And then how much does it cost to operate the truck, and all these various things. So we break it down. So when that person sells one ice cream, this is truly how much is going to their bottom line. Then we figure out on paper, how do they even get the customers to their truck? How much do they have to spend on marketing? And so we break it down literally in numbers from A to Z, from marketing all the way to depositing the money in the bank account at the end of the year, how much it will cost them. What does their business model look like to operate a food truck or operate any type of business? And then, of course, we try to be very, very realistic with the numbers. And if you're starting a business, this is going to be a guess.
Right.
There's ways that we can use sort of more accurate numbers. But if you're an existing business, we have accurate numbers to use, to play with. And so we'll map out what it looks like, and we'll make sure we're using realistic numbers. And then we'll figure out, once you have this down on paper, once you have your business model on paper, then we'll figure out what needs to change in order to be more profitable. Let me back up, actually. If we map it out and you're happy with the end of the year, if you're supposed to make, if we think you're going to make $100,000 in net profit, if you're happy with that, then that's great. But at the end of the year, you're only supposed to make $200. Obviously, you're not going to be happy with that. So we're going to figure out what needs to change, because it may not be sales. It may be that your product costs are too high, or it may be that you're not marketing correctly.
Right.
And so we'll figure out the most important things to change, and we'll help you figure out how to change that.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And once again, Startup Nation, if Adam is a person you think that can help you in your business, go to the CFOproject.com. We have a link in the show notes for easy access for you to get that information, to get in contact with Adam for sure. Adam, let's lighten the mood a little bit, just a little bit. So I'm going to, let's say you have an idea or product or service that let's say product, it's probably easier, right? And there's 3 entrepreneurs that want to work with you: Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, or Steve Jobs. Who would you pick and why?
Oh, man. That want to work with me, like in terms of as an investor?
Let's say all 3 of them want to work with you on building, not as an investor, be there at the ground floor building this company. They all 3 want to work with you, but you got to choose one. Who would you pick and why?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I would probably choose Mark Cuban.
Okay. Why Mark?
I think And again, I would be probably happy working with all three of those.
Oh, of course. Who wouldn't be, right?
But I think that he is more pragmatic. I think he lives more in the real world with understanding the entire. And let me back up. It also depends on what type of product we are selling.
For sure.
If it's more technology than probably Elon Musk.
Right.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I honestly have to do some more thinking about that. But if I had to pick right now, it would be Mark Cuban. I think he's just more pragmatic and approaches things from a realistic standpoint of, is this a viable product or service? Can we scale this? If we can, can we throw a bunch of money at something that's working? If we can do that, then let's just figure out how to get it to work. How do we create a business model that works that later we can throw money at to scale?
Gotcha.
I think he's more, that's a good question.
Okay. Yeah, I try to put a question in there to kind of lighten the mood, to kind of have a little fun or whatever. So I appreciate you kind of indulging me there a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure. So I want to ask you this, man, because I believe no one builds a great business on their own, and we all have partners in many different ways. So, Adam, I want you to tell me about Holly, your wife. What has she meant to you on your path to entrepreneurship, supporting your endeavors and everything in between?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it's important to have somebody that, if you're an entrepreneur, it's a lonely world out there. It's important to have somebody to listen to you.
Absolutely.
Whether they offer anything of value, and obviously she offers valuable insight. But even if she didn't, it helps to have somebody to just listen that can understand what you're going through or what you're going through. And I think that I think she understands me, because I'm not, and I think probably most people listening to this podcast are meant to be business owners or entrepreneurs. I haven't met many real business owners, like true entrepreneurial or existing business owners that are doing it just for the money. I really haven't. I think it's more of a calling, and you're meant to be a business owner because you have all these ideas and you want to do things. And if like myself, I had a corporate job and I just felt constantly like I was sitting in a box, and I couldn't escape the box because, there was, a million other people that were ahead of me.
Right.
And so I wanted to do a lot of things in the business. And so it's important to have somebody in your sphere, whether that's your spouse or a family member, a relative, or friends, or a mastermind group, or whoever, that gets it and helps support you, because it is very lonely. And it's one of those things where you want to give up on a regular basis. And there's something inside of you that you're not going to give up, but you want to give up. You want to go to what you think are greener pastures. And you need somebody that just helps understand that and just helps listen, because it is lonely.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you for answering it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I believe all entrepreneurs have an entrepreneurial superpower. What's yours and why?
Oh my goodness, it's never giving up.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just, and like I mentioned earlier, it took me 4 tries to start the business,
right,
for my first business. And it finally took off. But I feel like perseverance. Actually, I think I read a quote yesterday. It's kind of funny you mentioned that. Steve Jobs was quoted as saying that he thinks that most successful entrepreneurs are the one thing they possess is perseverance.
I hear that.
You got to have that, because if you're the type of person to give up easy and you want somebody to tell you what, the 5 steps to getting rich, and you really don't want to put in the hard work, you're not going to make it as a business owner. You're not going to make it as an entrepreneur. You've got to be able to be willing to put in the work and like it. You have to like working and putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. It has to be ingrained in you. And I think most business owners that I meet and entrepreneurs that I meet, they possess that. Because if you're in it just for the money, for the first probably 5 years, you'd be better off going to get a job, if that's all you really care about is the money. might as well go get a job, because you can make, decent money working for a lot of businesses. But the reason why business owners and entrepreneurs start, in my opinion, and work for less than what they would make in a job is because something inside of them is telling that this is their calling, this is their path. The reason why I started the CFO Project is I just hated seeing all these business owners who had so much inside of them, who were so passionate about what they did, but they failed because of just some red flags that they missed because they just were not financial people. And it's sad, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, a business is a financial entity. The whole point is to make a profit, which is a financial number.
Right.
And you've got to focus on what is the most important things for your business to stay in business. And that's what we do. We just do it in a really easy and digestible manner so that business owners can focus on what they do best, knowing that they have this peace of mind, knowing that somebody is helping them as sort of like their financial guide.
Got you. Thank you for sharing all of that. And before I ask the last question, Adam, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the Startup Life podcast, powered by the Binge Podcast Network. You gave amazing value about, the importance of financials and profit margins and understanding that, but also understanding that, like, look, this is a very lonely journey. And so a lot of times it's great to have a partner there with you along the ride, even if it's just for encouragement purposes, for sure. So, Adam, I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you because there's an entrepreneur out there who's losing hope. They're afraid to start their company, or they're in their company and they feel stuck. Give them some words of motivation that tell them to keep going forward today.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, if you really believe in yourself and you really believe that you're meant to be an entrepreneur, business owner, that to persevere, and if you have to pivot or change, that's okay. Just because you started off one path, once you understand the next step, once you get to that next step, it's okay to change paths, to pivot, but just keep moving forward, keep persevering, because if you really truly believe in yourself, I mean, you'll make it. It may take a while, probably will take a while, but if you believe in yourself, you'll get there. Enjoy the journey. I mean, there's a reason why entrepreneurs and small businesses stay entrepreneurs and small businesses, because they enjoy the autonomy and the dependence and the freedom that being an entrepreneur provides. You're going to want to give up, but I would just say keep persevering if you truly believe in yourself.
I hear that. And that's going to wrap up this session of the Startup Life. Adam, how did you enjoy being on the Startup Life?
Oh, this is great. Thank you. I really enjoyed the questions.
No worries. All right, Startup Nation. So here's my final take. I am very glad that Adam came on the show for two reasons. One, because he talks about working on the business versus working in the business. That part is critical, so I don't need to go over that anymore. But secondly, Startup Nation, he talks about the financial health of your company. Look, when you think about Shark Tank or The Profit or any of those business shows, one of the important things they always ask for are the financials, because the financials really speak to the health of your business, whether it be, are your profit margins at the right place? Are you bringing in enough revenue to keep the doors open? And a myriad of other things. So really keep that in mind, Startup Nation, on your path to entrepreneurship. And if you feel like the financial health of your company could really benefit from Adam's services, I would actually reach out to Adam, and any blog or content he creates on financial health in your business, I would really add that to your entrepreneurial toolkit. If you want to let us know what you think about the show, have an idea for a show topic, or like to advertise on our show, please send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or whatever your favorite platform to get your podcast on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass to get exclusive content. This is exclusively on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life. The Startup Life. Startup Nation, are you hanging around for extra content? All right, here you go.
So there, I tell a story about PayPal. Came out, 20 years ago, and you send money through email. And then a few years ago, Venmo came out. I don't know if your audience is familiar with Venmo.
Yes,
you're familiar with Venmo.
Very much so.
Venmo came out. It does exactly the same thing, but it just did it so much easier. And in a way that, back then it was emails. In the last few years, everybody had smartphone. So you could just download an app and send the money very easily, just with their phone number. And then, of course, PayPal then ended up buying Venmo because it was the same problem, just solved in a much more elegant way that people just couldn't resist switching from PayPal to Venmo. And then, of course, PayPal, that's why they had to buy it. But so there has to be a lot of differentiators, not superficial ones. It has to be more than just your user interface. It has to be more than just everybody's doing it in 3 clicks, you're doing it in 1. Well, great. But how does that really dramatically change my life or the life of my business by using your application? It has to be a complete paradigm shift.
So we go from South Carolina down to Florida, and we talk to Samuel Morheim. So Startup Nation, if you want to get that content as soon as it's available, go ahead and subscribe to the Startup Life podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms. So that way, when that episode is available, it'll be right there waiting for you. But until then, Startup Nation, get out of here. You got a company to grow.